Evelyn to Philip, April 8, 1944. Dearest Phil, as I expected, no mail from you today. I'm looking forward to that London letter and hope it's the usual longie. Adele's sigh has disappeared and she's looking well once more. I plan to take the Claire Pruitt picture about Tuesday. Don't count on it though, for I've been sidetracked too many times and don't want to build up your hopes. I'll let you know about it the day we take a picture. The weather has been changeable all day. First it's cloudy, then it's sunny, then it rains. In the morning it was cloudy, so I placed Adele in the playpen and proceeded to press. After her nap, it cleared up and got unusually warm. I stayed out most of the afternoon with her. After dinner, I let her play on the porch. Harry is working and Goldie went to the movies. Mom joined me on the porch. Betty, Lou, and Natalie were also on the porch. A relative of Sarah's came over with her little girl of 2. Well, sweet, you should have seen Kathy and Adele in action. We all laughed until tears came. I don't remember laughing that hard in all my life. We asked Kay to sing and dance. She wouldn't, but Adele took the cue. She sang, dubbing in all sorts of baby words and expressions, and shook and pranced and swayed and danced. I asked her to take the baby's hands and make a ring around a rosy. Kay was a bit shy with the new people, and Adele had to pull her into it. Adele was pleased with herself and clapped and patted herself. She also has a habit of throwing her head backwards till she almost falls when she's pleased with herself. Then we asked them to sit down on the step leading from the porch to living room. Kay had no trouble obeying this particular order. Adele, on the other hand, had to go through the process both Jack N. and I have described on various occasions. She was a sketch. Later she kissed Kay, and then she pulled her hair. Kay hugged and kissed her too. Adele noted the nail polish on Kay's fingernails and her little identification bracelet. She said, as if to say, why don't I have those? Adele hated to see her leave and looked after her long after her departure. What fun. April 9th, 1944. Adele stayed up later than usual, falling asleep at 8:30. I had intended to finish this once I was dressed. However, the gang next door asked me to tag along with them to see Madame Curie with Greer Garson and Walter Pidgeon, which I did. I enjoyed the picture immensely. Did you see it? What surprised me most was the completely renovated Logan Theater. Phil, you ought to see it. Page 2 reminds me of the theaters in town. They took out the box seats near the stage and covered the walls with lovely drapes. They have new modern fixtures with indirect lighting. They have the glass framework built across the last row as the theaters downtown, and drapes to cover this. What a difference. Their prices have raised due to the 20% tax recently passed for all luxuries. Upstairs 44 cents, downstairs 55 cents. I stopped over to Helen's yesterday afternoon while out with Adele. Helen is working at the Jewish hospital, doing clerical work. Spends 2 nights a week taking dramatics at Hedgerow. Jean is back in town, planning to join the army. The Breslows can't get over our lovely daughter. I haven't seen Jean yet. Friday night at about 11 p.m., my cousin Bella and her beau dropped in. I had been sleeping since 10 and didn't know about it till the next morning. She gave Mom the dress she promised me for Adele's birthday. Phil, it's a beauty. It's light blue, silkish material with 6 pleats in the front and 6 pleats in the back. It has a pink collar trimmed with blue and 2 bands of pink across the bosom widely separated, so that the second band forms a portion of the belt, which ties in back in the blue material. There is a pink bird embroidered on the left side above the pink band, and another pink bird below the band on the right side. It's a size 3 and a bit large at the moment. Adele is beginning to grow out of some of her present dresses, and many have to have the hems lowered. About 3 weeks ago, I told you that Adele measured 31 inches. I measured her recently, and she measured almost 33 inches. That ought to give you a good idea of how fast she is springing up. She was almost the same size as 2-year-old Kathy. She's a tall, well-built girl for her age. Our Adele, and has loads of personality. She looks mighty pretty in her blue skirt, white blouse, and white and blue socks today. The skirt is getting small too. Goldie has been doing quite a bit around the house and is taking a great interest in cooking. She'd better be a good cook if she wishes to please Harry. She starts her 8th month tomorrow and is carrying nicely. It won't be long now. Faye isn't going to join her husband after all. He is expecting a furlough in 2 weeks, and they have decided to let things go and wait till he can come home. Faye doesn't think Adele has ever taken a picture that flatters her or even looks like her. She keeps saying Phil ought to see what a pretty daughter he has. April 13th is Harry and Goldie's first anniversary, and I'm going to give them $5 as a gift. By the way, I wish you would time yourself correctly and try to get a baby greeting here for them about page 3, the last week of May or first week of June. She's expecting about June 9th. The weather was so warm that people went coatless most of the day. I didn't know how to dress Adele. I have no in-between clothes. I think I shall try to get her a sort of gabardine overall and bonnet to see me through, if such an outfit is obtainable. Jean and Helen stopped over this evening, and we gabbed for a while. Jean prefers the Navy to the Army and is waiting to hear from the Navy, not the Army, as I said previously. She cut her hair short and is bleaching it a bit. She looks well. Phil and Emma stopped over shortly after they left. I'm beginning to acquire a liking for Phil, slowly but surely. When he walked in, Goldie called hello to him. Betty happened to be in the kitchen and didn't see who it was. She turned red and all the colors of the rainbow, thinking for a fleeting moment that it was, of all people, you. How I wish it was. I don't know where you got the mistaken impression that Phil doesn't like to write. He has emphasized on many occasions the shortcoming of yours. He is patiently awaiting a reply from you. He writes to Emma daily, even though he sees her every weekend. He is very devoted to her. There isn't much else to say, baby, except my traditional I love you, Phil, dear. I might add that Mr. Fromer is coming along nicely. I try whenever possible to end my letters differently, as you do, but usually I feel myself overflowing with such a keen desire to kiss you or hold you or caress you or even touch you that I fail mentally to express my true meaning. Darling husband, words cannot express the extent of my longing and desire for your presence. Do we have 8 more months to go? I wonder. Be it 8 months or longer, I shall be waiting as always. Your Ev. Philip to Evelyn, April 8, 1944. Beloved darling, I just knocked off emails to Ruth and Gloria, and I'm all set to give you the lowdown on my trip to Norwich last night. To begin with, I knocked off work a little earlier in order to wash, shave, and dress in time to get on board one of the 2 trucks that left from the space. There were about 24 of us, including 2 officers, and we had to install 3 extra chairs to accommodate us all. The trip, thanks to the antics of Klein and the general air of camaraderie, was pleasant rather than otherwise. Our hosts in Norwich had hired the largest dance hall in the town for the occasion, and had filled the place, including the balcony, which ran across all four sides of the hall with tables and chairs. They had expected and made preparations for 1,000. As usual, they underestimated, sadly, almost 2,000 showing up to attend the festivities. This number isn't surprising when you consider the fact that the proportion of Jews in the services is, as I learned recently, 8%. This ratio is just double that of the percentage of Jews in the United States in proportion to Gentiles, 4%. The Protestant chaplain at this space, Captain Wheeler, is wholly responsible for these holiday excursions. He has made every effort to see that the Jewish fellows want for nothing, as far as he is able to provide it. His warm cooperation and friendliness strike a responsive chord in each soldier's heart, and he is well loved by all who are fortunate enough to know him. He attends many of our services and once talked to us on the Christian religion and how it resembles and differs from the Jewish. Never before had I listened to a speaker with more interest. Never have I learned so much in so little time. I know it surprises you, sweet, that I am taking an increasing interest in religion, but it is true that such is the case. Someday, when I have a lot of time and little else to write about, I will enlarge on my new attitude. Right now, I'm way off the subject. To get back, when we arrived at the hall, every available seat was filled, and soldiers milled about in the cloakroom, in the foyers and entrances, and in the aisles. Most of us hadn't eaten since lunch. I was one of that number, and I was famished. My first reaction to the situation was to get out of there and find a restaurant, but the crowd was so immense, and the reason and nature of it so unprecedented, that I couldn't tear myself away. I was greatly intrigued at the spectacle, and would probably still be gaping at the wonder of it, had not Rosenzweig come along to ask me where we were going to eat. Klein, to be sure, page 2, managed to snare a seat at table and was already eating. Rosie and I hopped a bus to the center of town, where we managed to find a restaurant. We feasted on fish and chips. An MP sergeant took a seat at our table, and we were soon engrossed in a three-way conversation. So preoccupied were we that we failed to take account of the passing time. When we finally thought to look, it was just past 9 o'clock. The trucks were scheduled to start back at 9:30, and we were at the other end of town. We jumped up out of our chairs as if we were sitting on hot coals, paid the bill hastily, and made a wild dash for the last bus. It was gone, and we thought we were goners. Looking about for a cab, we learned from a bobby that a woman cabbie was in a nearby pub waiting for 2 more fares before she would consent to take a British civilian and his small son where they wanted to go. While she waited, she was tanking up. When we arrived on the scene, she said she would take us. When Rosie tried to explain to her that we were in a great hurry, she said, okay, and proceeded to take her own sweet time. I was so disgusted with the whole situation that I didn't even bother to get mad about it. Rosie, however, was literally hopping in his impatience to get started. Finally, at 9:20, she decided to be magnanimous about the whole thing and told us to get into the cab. She came out shortly afterward, fetching a fellow from the pub to get the cab started. This consumed another precious 3 minutes. In spite of everything, we arrived at the hall on the dot of 9:30. Had we known the distance was so short, we could have saved time by walking. We hunted frantically through the dozens of parked GI trucks for our vehicle. No soap. After checking each and every one, we failed to find them. We were plenty apprehensive by this time because we had no business in town overnight, and would certainly have been picked up by the MPs on that account. Visions of the guardhouse stared us in the face as we groped about disconsolately and hopelessly in the deepening dusk. We were truly at our wits' end when two big trucks came rolling past. Just as the second one was opposite where we were standing, I heard Klein yelling lustily, "Phil, Phil!" He got no further, 'cause just about then, Rosie and I let go with our best yells, made even better, I fancy, by the added note of desperation. The fellows in the back of the truck immediately set up an unholy din of yelling and whistling and stamping of feet to attract the attention of the driver. After going a block further, Rosie and I running like mad to catch up, the driver was suddenly aware of the turmoil behind him and stopped the truck to find out what was causing all the commotion. While he was, page 3, finding out, Rosie and I clambered aboard. Klein had found time to get a few drinks in him, as had some of the other fellows, and a true holiday spirit prevailed all the way home. Klein sat on the tailgate, precariously supported by the safety strap, and made like Hitler. His version is comically exaggerated, and although I've seen him do this particular routine 100 times, I couldn't help but laugh. Then the rest of the gang got into the spirit of the thing, and every time Klein would raise his hand as a prelude to his spouting, they all shouted "Heil" in unison. Klein made a dozen false starts this way, his suppressed zeal mounting with each interruption until he seemed to be filled to bursting with all the things he wanted to say, but couldn't because of the constant heiling. Finally, the group let him work off steam, whereupon he immediately became convulsed into a fit of coughing, pounding his chest and gasping for air. We all got a great kick out of this impromptu comedy. Klein attempted to lead the singing that followed, but soon found he was so hoarse from his previous rantings that he had to give it up. Klein's singing, incidentally, is in a class by itself. He purposely starts on a high key and goes along rippingly, as the English say, until he reaches a note just out of range, or I should say, tries to reach it. His voice cracks wide open, and he strives mightily to attain that note. His antics at this time are wondrous to behold. He raises himself on his toes, lifts his face, beats his chest, coughs, groans, tears his hair, and does everything but tear his throat in his frenzied efforts to get that note. Any day now he'll work himself up to that point. You can readily imagine, Chippy, that when Klein is around there is never a dull moment. When we arrived back in camp, we all headed for the mess hall. Most of the fellows still hadn't eaten. I wasn't hungry, though, having filled up on the fish and chips. Just to keep Klein and Rosie company, I fooled around with a bowl of cornflakes. We walked from the mess hall to the hut in bright moonlight, and so to bed. What a night. I had intended to answer your anniversary letter of 20 March, but I haven't had any mail for 2 days now, so I think I'd better save that for tomorrow. Good night for now, sweet. I haven't missed keeping our date yet. Have you? Kiss the pumpkin for me. Give my love to all. I adore you. Your Phil.